Hello and welcome back to another Ken 7 podcast. It's been a little while, but I've managed to assemble the Arl Arses. Sorry, Paul. Back again for a You really don't like being involved in that group, mate, do you?
I think I should have a separate sort of title, but worried about what it would be.
Let me introduce everyone. So joining me today is Paul Moran and Stephen Eddie Jones. Gents, welcome. We're obviously in the middle of an international break, which is just boring as far as I'm concerned. I just want to see the Reds play. So let's have a little chat. I want to chat through what's happened, where we're going and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, the transfer window. So, Paul, we've played 3 games so far. What's your assessment of the 3 games that we've played so far?
Well, you look at them 3 games, you say you get 7 points from the 3. Would you be happy with that? And possibly say, well, you 2 home games in the Norwich away, you should possibly be getting 9 points. But I was really impressed with how we played at Norwich. I thought we did what we needed to do against a, shall we say, robust Burnley side. We dealt with them and beat them 2-0. Last season, we got beat 1-0 with no fans there. This season, we beat them 2-0. And then the Chelsea game was just a very good game of football. If you watched that Chelsea game as a neutral, you'd be saying, can I lay 2 good teams there? Because Chelsea were very good in that game. It's no good just saying, we should have done this with the 10 men. It's a pity the sending off wasn't a minute after half time rather than a minute before, because they had 15 minutes to get themselves completely reorganised for the second half. But they were still dangerous in the second half. We was out on that the night of the game, and people were, we should have done this. We should just enjoy the game. You've not been able to go for 18 months. And you go and watch an absolutely brilliant game. I know we wanted to win. It was desperate for us to score when it was 1-1, but it's just a good game of football, and you've not seen any of them live for 18 months. Some of the complaints I thought they are over the top all the time anyway. But some of the comments about us not beating 10 men, you're playing a very, very good team. And you drew with them, all right. You know, we had chances to win it. They possibly had a couple of chances on the break later on. But for people to complain about dropping 2 points against Chelsea, I thought it was over the top, to be honest with you. It was a really, really good game of football.
Dad, do you agree with that? I mean, I think there was a lot of goodwill after the first 2 games, the Norwich game and the Burnley game, but the Chelsea games just seem to have put a lot of Liverpool fans on a downer. And do you agree with that, or can you see where people are coming from?
I think that's absolutely right. But the problem is that on the 2 games, I think Liverpool played their football game, which was fantastic. Now Chelsea just parked the bus. Any team struggles when somebody parks the bus, and they had a bit of luck as well. But they're a very good side. They actually won the European Cup doing exactly the same, basically.
It's a great point. They did that to City, and you'd say City could break anyone down. Yeah.
You'd think they'd have enough armoury there to break anyone down, and they couldn't do it. So in fact, you'd be upset a little bit. The media and the only problem with commentators, they look for something to say, and of course it's Liverpool. They were playing 10 men and couldn't get a result. They just love doing it, don't they? And I think they're a bit critical because they're looking for things to say, and then they're looking at really the nth degree. But 7 points from that, I think, was good, really good, and we played good football.
I'll stick with you, Dad. Actually, There's a fallacy, and maybe Paul will want to chip in after Dad speaks, but there's a fallacy that 10 men is a massive advantage. But in the situation that we were in, it actually makes no difference because they take an attacker off. They don't take a defender off. You're not playing against one less defender. You're playing against one less of attacker. So their attacking threat is actually thwarted, but the defensive threat is exactly the same, and they're still well organised, and they've still got world-class players well organised, which makes it difficult. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, you see, as soon as they get the ball and they pump it up, and someone is maybe just on the halfway line, then obviously we've got to defend, because the last thing we want is to obviously concede, and that's one of the problems. And they did it very well. they're a good side. I mean, Chelsea are a very, very good side, and we actually got back into it, and it was really, really, really good. I thought it was a good performance from us.
Steve, I'd argue that we played better when they had 11 men than when they had 10. Would you agree?
I think the first thing to say, Gav, I totally agree with Ed there, is that let's be under no illusions that Chelsea are a really good side. They really are a good side. Defensively, they're outstanding. They're absolutely deadly on the break. Absolutely deadly on the break. I've heard it described as a Tuchel masterclass. No, I don't really subscribe to that, but they are good. I think the problem with our fans is we were playing at home and you sort of expect it to be 3 points. It doesn't always work out like that. I mean, for large periods of that game, when they did go down to 10 men, I mean, it was a bit like the siege of the Alamo, wasn't it, really? I mean, we were just pummeling at them. And I think that, yeah, maybe it's a little bit disappointing that we didn't find a way through to get it. But equally, they could have got a second goal as well. So quietly, I was okay with 1 point from that particular game. We're not going to go through this season winning every home game, I don't think. So, all right, credit to them. They're a decent side. I agree with you, Paul. It was an absolutely outstanding game of football. It was absolutely superb to watch. But 11 v 10, like you say, it just doesn't always work out that advantageous. And the fact that clearly the one man down is a striker, is always a striker. You're still generally playing against the same defenders and the same midfield, and they're good.
Paul, I'll bring you in on that. I mean, them going down to 10 men, I mentioned, people think, well, it's 10 men, you should beat them. But in reality, they just take a striker off and they've still got the same amount of players in a block. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Is there anything that your dad used to say about 10 men back in the day?
Well, again, without, reminiscing, and it's the Arl Arses podcast and that, no one really used to get sent off back in the day.
Is it the Arl Arses and Paul Moran? Sorry, should we change?
Yeah, it can be now, yeah. The Arl Arses and young Paul. As I say, people never used to get sent off. Back in the day, you really used to have to do something horrendous to be sent off. So, for saying what did we used to do against 10 men, it never really used to come up.
Right.
And then, of course, if someone did get sent off now, you've got the option of, as you say, the forward goes off and the defender comes on. Years ago, it depended on who you had on the bench. You had your one sub. So you might have Davy Jono sitting there and Tomo gets sent off. So what do you do then? It's you swap it or do you just move people around? Now you've obviously got covered in every department on the bench for most of the game. It'd be an interesting thing if someone we said talk about this when I said we went out on the night after the game. It'd be interesting whether they could do a thing where teams aren't allowed to make a substitution for 10 minutes after a sending off. So you can't just do. I know there'd be ways around it. I know it's an impossible thing to do. But if you just said to Chelsea, right, you can't bring a sub until the 55th minute, like a 10-minute, not a sin bin thing, but the team have had a man sent off and they're not really being punished because they can take an attacker off, bring a defender on. Obviously, with a goalkeeper, it's a different thing. If the goalie gets sent off, I understand that. But it'd be interesting whether, it's another rule change that they'll never bring in. But it's just something. It was interesting when we talked about it. We said, well, if you had a 10-minute spell where you can't bring a sub on to take your centre forward off or your right winger and put a centre half back on to just swap it straight away.
The big shock, I'll come to you, Dad, on this, but I'll let you all have a chat about this, is when I say shock, what I mean was the selection of Harvey Elliott. And the shock was it was such a big game that we all looked at it and thought, well, wow, he really trusts Harvey Elliott then. I mean, there was other options. Naby Keita had played well in the first two games. There was Oxlade-Chamberlain, obviously, there was Thiago. Dad, what did that? What was your thought about Harvey Elliott when we did our blog on the game, on the Burnley game? We were all enthusiastic and looking forward to seeing Harvey Elliott play, and he didn't let us down. What was your thoughts about seeing Harvey Elliott on the team sheet in such a big game and such a crucial game?
I just thought it was. I mean, I'm a big fan of Harvey Elliott. I'm a bigger fan of his attitude as well as the way he plays. I mean, obviously, he's a very, very talented young man, and it excites me that that's the sort of player we've actually got. And but it's his attitude. It's his attitude towards our club, which you have to say with a lot of the players now going. Well, some of them go. They just look at money, don't they, and go, and which is one of the things that I don't like about the new footballer, if we call him that. He's refreshing. He's just absolutely really refreshing because he loves the club. I think his dad does as well, and it's just refreshing to have someone. It's like another Trent Alexander-Arnold, isn't it?
Yeah,
people that we've got ourselves. And he's a very, very talented player. And I'm pleased that Klopp has shown that obviously he thinks so too.
Steve, there was some interesting stats that I saw after the game, which I was quite shocked at. Harvey Elliott ran more than anyone else on the pitch, was the first one that I saw. And he also had 13 ball retentions, which means that he stole the ball back off at Chelsea 13 times. I mean, you were in the stadium. Obviously, I couldn't come because I had COVID. But what did you think? Did that come across in his performance?
It did. It did. You find it difficult to believe at times that the lad's only 18. And clearly, Jurgen has got a lot of confidence in him, which is why he clearly fancies him as a player. I think the thing that impresses me about Harvey is that he's always busy, he's always buzzing around, and he always seems to make himself available for a pass, quite often in very tight situations on the edge of the box. Sure, he's lost the ball once or twice, but he's still learning his trade. Those stats don't surprise me at all because he always seems to be available to give a teammate an option, and that's exactly what you want in that sort of in that position that he's being played in at the moment. So he looks great. I think the thing with Elliott is that he is 18. I think his game time needs to be managed. I really do. And I'm sure that Jurgen understands that as well. Although he desperately wants to play him, clearly, doesn't he?
Yeah, of course.
I believe he's picked up a knock. I've heard that in the last couple of days.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that in a bit. Paul, I mean, what was your thoughts when you saw him on the team sheet in such a big game? Did that sort of rank with you as significant and an indication of how Jurgen sees him as a player?
Well, obviously he trusts him implicitly to perform and do what he wants him to do. I mean, the best compliment you can pay the lad is if I know he's pulled out the England squad with the knock that's just been mentioned there. If you look at the team for say Sunday against Leeds, if he's playing, there'll be no reaction as in why is he playing him? It'll just be Harvey's playing Saturday or Sunday. I'm glad he's okay. Personally, I'd be glad if he's okay to play. So that's the biggest compliment you can pay the lads is the fact that there's no, sometimes when people are picked in the first team, you think, I don't think you play him against them or whatever. I mean, we did it a little bit the Burnley game because we weren't expecting him to be in the starting 11. But the way he's played, if he's there on Sunday, fair enough. He's playing in the first team and he's very much entitled to be there, and he'll be an asset to the team if he plays. So you can't say no more about him than that, really.
Of course. I mean, the something that happened just before we went into this international break was the transfer window closed, and obviously we didn't bring anyone in. There's been a lot of, let's say, negative chat about it, certainly on social media and in the media, even in the mainstream media, they seem to think that we've now slipped to down the league because we haven't signed anyone. Steve, what was your thoughts on the fact that we didn't sign anyone? Were you disappointed? Can you see the point? How does it sit with you?
Well, look, we're not signing Mbappe. And that seems to have disappointed an awful lot of our fans. I'm quite relaxed about it. I think that if whoever we sign at the moment, it needs to be a starter. It needs to be somebody that you can actually say, look, he will improve the first 11. And as you go through the side, it's actually quite difficult to say, well, who would you sign that would improve it? We've got the best goalkeeper in the world. We've got a good understudy, and I'm referring to Kelleher. If anything, we feast or famine. Centre backs. We've got 5 centre backs now. We're well provided in midfield. I remember on a previous podcast, I expressed a little bit of concern about the replacement of Genie. And Paul, I think you rightly pointed out that, well, your first choice midfield really chooses itself, I suppose. It's Fab, it's Hendo, and it's Thiago. And yes, I think you're probably right at that. If we have got a weak area, it's probably up front where it's 3 from 4 at the moment. And I guess that what is the worry is that if we were to have an injury crisis with the front players, like we had with the centre backs last year, we'd maybe hit a few problems. But do you know something? Of whoever is available for, should we say, reasonable money, sensible money, I'm struggling to come up with a name that I think, I think we should go and sign them.
Well, I'll stick with you, Steve, because let's have a look at who has been transferred in this window and who you would have liked. So I'm not talking about people who've stayed at the clubs, people who've actually moved. So they were available for transfer. Who would you have wanted to sign reasonably? Because I don't think we could have gone and signed Sancho. And there's no point in signing Sancho because Mo Salah wants to play every game. But who is there anyone you thought we could have added?
Exactly, Gav, because I've already said I'm struggling to come up with a name, really. I mean, I've heard links with Traore from Wolves. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Well, do you want a strike? Do you want someone who plays in our forward line and doesn't score?
Yeah. I mean, hey,
he scored 4 goals last season.
Brilliant over 100 meters. Absolutely superb in the Olympics, I think. Because he is built like he's built like an athlete. Yeah. But he's not the type of player that I think that we would be going for. So I am honestly struggling to come up with a name. Where I'm disappointed. We didn't go for them. And the other thing, I trust Jurgen. I'm sure that if there was somebody that Jurgen really fancied and wanted, the funds would have been available to sign him.
Dad, what we're basically arguing about is, to all intents and purposes, a 5th option forward. The problem that I have, and I've said this before on videos and I've been slagged off for it, you can't sign another forward for decent money, and we're talking 40, 50 million, I think would have been affordable for us, while you've got Minamino and Origi still in the squad, and it looked like we couldn't move those 2 players on. So what are we supposed to do as a squad? What would your comment be on that?
My comment would be, to be honest with you, how many of the other top teams would want our players? All of them. And they'd certainly want 7 or 8 of our players if they could buy them. And what we've done is we've actually secured them for longer term, which I think is important. Now, obviously, there's a problem where you may get injuries, and we know all about that. I like this is the media who are jumping on the bandwagon and saying we've lost the plot, we've not got anyone, we've got nobody in reserve, all that sort of thing. What I like is the people who actually say, we don't buy stars, we make stars. We buy them. We look. If you're clever enough, and we've done this, if you're clever enough, you see some players, and then you bring them to the club, and maybe at a young age, with not that much experience, and then you make stars out of them. And that's basically what we've done, and that's what Klopp does better than anybody else.
Of course. I mean, what's your comment on that, Paul, in terms of, did you think we needed someone in? Were you disappointed, or can you see? One of the things I wanted to talk to you all about is the contract situation. We've just spent a fortune on contracts for getting all the top players signed. We've got one left, maybe two, Mane, Salah. Did that disappoint you that we didn't bring anyone in, or could you see the value in us getting all those deals signed for the current crop?
Well, that's the important thing, is to keep the players you've got, who obviously, the ones who've won stuff for us over the last few years. But again, it's like the lads say, people should sign people, and there's no one you could pick. All right, you could say, or even Messi, when he comes available, you think, well, I don't think he'd fit into how we play. I think he'd disrupt how we play, which is a stupid thing to say for the best player in the world, who could fit into any team you would imagine. But, obviously coming now, he's gone to France now, so that's out the window anyway. But I don't think we needed to sign anyone in particular. There was no one that stood out who would be a regular first team player in front of the ones we've got now. And as I said to you on a few of the other podcasts, if we play our strongest team and our strongest team perform well, then there's not many teams going to get the better of us over the season. I know you can't play that team every game because it doesn't work like that. But we've got enough players there. And then you're saying we didn't buy anyone. We got Kanate. He come in the window, and then everyone keeps saying he never bought anyone. So there's 35 million on him. So, he's not £3.50 from home and bargain type of thing. You bought an excellent centre half, and I wouldn't even suggest he's covered. It's just, obviously, if Matip and Van Dijk continue like they have done in these 3 games, then he's not going to be in the team. But last season, the problem was the injuries to the centre half. So we've addressed that particular thing because we had 2 young lads playing because of what happened. So now you've got an experienced international defender who will play, you'd imagine 15, 20 games this season anyway.
And you've kept Nat Phillips as well, which is something we all wanted.
And the young lads now can play alongside an experienced defender, which can only do them good as well. Obviously, they're training with them every day, so they're learning off them in training, but match situations are a different thing. But certainly the stuff that was going on about not signing people, just looking at it saying, who do you want to sign? And they do ridiculous names getting mentioned, people who are never like Haaland and people like that. They're not going to come. If he goes anywhere, he'll go to City because of the money they've got behind the scenes that he seems to be able to use that no one else can use type of thing in the financial fair play. But I didn't bother about us not signing anyone at all. I wasn't on the edge of my seat on the last day of the window wondering what was going to happen. Oh, well, I'm not going to sign anyone, so it's not worth worrying about it. Plus the fact, as the comments made, Jurgen Klopp knows better than us anyway. Yeah,
completely. I think just to interject my little bit of an opinion, I think the only player that moved that and it'll be interesting to keep an eye on him and see if he actually works, was Leicester signed a forward called Patson Daka from Salzburg. And we were linked with him early on in the transfer window. And I was looking at it, it was 30 million quid, and he was young and he's quick and he scored goals over there. And I wondered whether that might have been one we could have had a little go at, but clearly we didn't want him because Leicester got him. I think he'd have come to us over Leicester maybe. So that was the only little one that I thought might have been beneficial to us.
If you're enjoying this video so far, please show your support for the Ken 7 channel by clicking the subscribe button, the like button, and also clicking the bell for future notifications. If you could also share the video on your Twitter and Facebook account, that will show YouTube's algorithm that you like our content. Do you know about Ken 7 merchandise? The link is in the description of this video. We have premium fanwear for fans,
covering Liverpool, Celtic and Scotland, and it's fanwear for young and old. So we have t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, caps, mugs, you name it, we've got it. Just something else to remember, every purchase that is made on our website, we donate to the Marina Dalglish Appeal. So you're helping a great cause as well. I want to just get your thoughts, guys. I'll come to you, Steve, on Van Dijk's form in the first 3 games. He's obviously had that serious injury. We're all holding our breath whenever he goes down on the floor, which is a horrible feeling. But there was indications in that Chelsea game that we were dealing with the same player that we had before. Did you see that in the stadium?
Absolutely. I think I did say on one of our previous podcasts that no one should underestimate the extent of the injury that he suffered. He destroyed 2 compartments of his knee. And 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, he wouldn't have come back from that, quite honestly. So yeah, my heart was in my mouth. It looks as if he's never been away. He looks absolutely fine. And I think the thing with Virgil is that it's not just what Virgil does himself on the pitch. It's the way that he radiates the confidence amongst the side. You can see in our first 3 games that everybody looks calm, relaxed, knows what they're doing, knows what their job is, and certainly if they don't know what their job is and they don't do it, they get a tongue lashing from Virgil. So I'm just delighted. Yeah, okay. I heard that he picked up a knock yesterday, was it? But it was ankle. It was not knee.
He played the rest of the game, though, I think, didn't he?
It was very late, I think.
It
was very late, so he really wouldn't have been taken off. But he walked off in the post-match interview. I believe he said, "It's nothing." The man's just made of steel, isn't it? Yeah. He's great. I have to say, Virgil van Dijk is my favourite player of all time.
Wow. That has absolutely blown my mind that you've said that. That's incredible. Dad, I know you're a big fan of Virgil van Dijk. I don't know whether it was you or Steve once said that he plays a game and doesn't need a shower afterwards. What's your thoughts on Virgil coming back and how he's played? And
I mean, with Virgil, you get so much more, don't you? Not only is he a great footballer, he's a great thinker, he's a tremendous organizer, and he's just coolness personified. And other people look up to him. I think is this Haaland, is it the fellow who wants £500 million a week? He's actually turned around and said about Virgil, he's not only a great footballer, but he's clever. Now that's coming from Haaland. So I mean, he's looking up to him, and here's a fellow who everyone seems to want at ridiculous sorts of money. I mean, he's just one of the best I've ever seen. I have to say that a certain Mr. Dalglish is probably the best I've ever seen, but then I'm a little bit biased. So,
Paul, what about you?
Well, if you look at him over the centre halves over the years, when you go back to the Ron Yates, I didn't really see that because I'm not old enough to have seen Ron Yates play that often.
You sure?
Yeah, just thought I'd get that in there then. But, you're talking Alan Hansen, Phil Thompson, the people like that, they were obviously fantastic players and brilliant players for us. But I think Virgil's influence on the team is possibly greater than their influence was on that team at that time. I think he's just the team leader. I know Jordan Henderson's captain, but I think a lot of the stuff goes through Virgil. And he said, like last season, we missed him last season. Fair enough. Hopefully, don't like that. And when Eddie said he destroyed 2 compartments of his knee, I think someone else was involved in that as well, type of thing. I don't think he did it on his own.
Yeah.
Who shall not be named, but I really do. When you say he's your favourite player of all time at Liverpool, I wouldn't go as far as Steve did with that, but he's certainly one of the most influential players actually on the pitch. When you're watching the game, you can see what he's doing and his positional play. Because you look at Matip. I mean, Matip's been excellent in the games he's played.
Yes.
You know, he's knocking like that last week, the one when Lukaku went down the wing near the end and Matip's after him. There was only one person lying on the floor when the ball got taken away, and that was Matip's running off with the ball. Lukaku's lying on the floor by the touchline, wondering what happened. And he was supposed to be bullying Matip all through the game, was what was said. Again, talking about Matip instead of Van Dijk, but he is possibly the most influential, and it's just his aura about him. It's just how he is on the pitch. The calmness I think he does around the players as well. He's just a fantastic player. It's obvious to say it.
Paul, the thing that I noticed in the first couple of games, and it was weird that I'd forgotten, but those passes, and they're not just punts upfield, they are absolutely arrowed into the perfect place for Mo Salah or Sadio Mane to think. And we missed that. We missed that all last season, didn't we?
Well, the Mane's goal against Burnley come from the ping 60 yards across. That was a good goal, that actually. It was one of. If you look at that goal, it's actually a lot better than anyone really gave that Mane's goal credit for. It was a fantastic goal. If you watch it, the build-up, all right, it only took 4 or 5 seconds, but it was such a good goal, a touch from the other two players involved as well. I think it was
Harvey Elliott.
You know, you look at that, it was a fantastic goal, but it comes from that pass, and the players, Salah, Mane, the more confident they're going to get the ball off Virgil, and they're making the runs that they were making 2 years ago. And last season, I thought we all got compacted up too much because there was none of that. All right, Trent can do it, you know, but Virgil does that ball. And as you say, people know he's going to do it, but they don't seem to be able to stop it.
No, not at all. So just to sort of wrap this up, boys, final thing I want to talk about. We obviously play Leeds on Sunday. I think they've struggled from the start of the season, haven't they? They've certainly been beaten twice. I can't remember what the score was in the last game. Paul, you might know. What was the score in the last game?
I think they've drawn 2 and they got battered by United.
Oh, they got battered by United. Yeah. Steve, what's your thoughts going into the Leeds game? I'll stick with you.
Don't think they're a bad side. I think it's going to be a tough game. Leeds, whatever you say about Leeds United and Leeds United fans, I mean, it's quite a raucous atmosphere when you get to Ellen Road. So
horrible place to go to.
It is
it's horrible. Yeah.
So they'll be glad to have their fans up against us. They've drawn against Burnley and Everton was a 2-2 draw, right. I think, wasn't it? I think if we play anything like, we should be okay. Interesting to see what the starting 11 is going to be. I mean, we've already mentioned Knox to Virgil, although he's fine, he tells us. And obviously with Harvey Elliott, interesting to see if Harvey starts as well. But I think we've got enough in our team and indeed on the bench nowadays to be optimistic that we could take the points at their place. But I'd never underestimate them because they're a bit of a dogs of war side, I think, Leeds United.
Yeah.
And you're always going to come up against that.
Well, they make the game crazy, don't they? I mean, they certainly did at Anfield last season. What was it? Was
4-3.
4-3, and they just made it nuts. Like at any time they could have scored, but at any time we could have scored. It was bizarre. I don't know whether he's sorted that out, Bielsa. But Dad, looking at the team selection, if we assume that Virgil is fit, we assume Harvey Elliott's out. What would you? I mean, there's only really one debate in midfield, isn't there? Really, the team picks itself apart from midfield. What would you go for?
I think I would go for Thiago if I could try and get someone in there. I mean, Keita's
he's back now.
Is he back?
They've got him back. Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, honestly, could you make anything up more fantastic than a military coup in a country? I mean, seriously, what else? I saw
imagine
someone
him ringing Klopp up, couldn't you? And, Klopp thinking, "Oh my God, he's injured." So no, I'm trapped in the hotel because there's been a military coup.
The next level to that is alien abduction. I think one of our players gets abducted by aliens.
I've heard we sent a private jet out to pick him up.
We have. Yeah, he's back now apparently. So with that in mind, Dad, I mean, let's say Harvey Elliott's out. So you go Thiago, because the other thing that we've got is this Brazilian situation. And if anyone's watching this and doesn't know what's going on, the Brazilian FA have basically claimed that against the clubs in the Premier League
who've held their players back,
who've basically not allowed their players to be released to Brazil or to various other red list areas. And they're now saying that they can enforce a law which means that the players who didn't go can't play for 5 days after the end of the international break, which would mean that Alisson and Fabinho would be ruled out of the Leeds game. Firmino's got an injury, so that's he's out of that. What do you think about that situation, Dad?
Well, I was impressed with Leeds last season, and as you say, as you said, their fans are quite boisterous and they can make things difficult. So it's not an easy game, but I have confidence in the people that we've got. Even if we've got a few players out, I think we've got young players who've learnt an awful lot, and obviously they've had another close season there as well at Liverpool, and obviously they've been signed, the likes of Matt Phillips and that. And I've got a bit of confidence with them. I think they have taken on the mantle. Maybe Matt Phillips, if he gets in there, he'll butt a few, I think, because that's what he does, isn't he? But I've got a lot more confidence in the squad, because obviously otherwise we'd have been shouting our heads off about us not signing anyway. When you look at these people who have written, "Oh, it's terrible," most of them are commentators. Most of them are football reporters who just are looking for a story. I mean, some of the stories that come out are crazy, but we're the honest fans. We actually know that if most of our players are fit, we've got one of the strongest sides. I wouldn't say we've got the strongest side, but we've got one of the strongest sides in the Premier Division. And so we play our game. We play a game of football. They're not as physical as maybe other teams, and that's where we might just struggle a little bit, because I think Leeds can be a bit physical as well, and they're quick.
I mean, we can handle ourselves, Paul, can't we? I mean, we've got lads there who are big lads. I mean, Christ, our two starting centre backs, 165 and 164. Henderson dishes it out. Fabinho's a big lad. I know we've got small lads, but you don't see Mo Salah getting barged off the ball very often, do you? He's got that core strength. So, I mean, do you think that's going to be an issue for us on Saturday against Leeds?
No, not to be honest, no. I don't. It's not something you'd look at as being one of the main problems. I think the main problem we need to address on Sunday is to keep the crowd quiet, which obviously they won't be for the first 10 minutes, no matter what's happening. But we just keep the crowd quiet, play the ball around, keep it moving. As Eddie said, I think Thiago's your man in midfield for that game. Certainly, because you probably have Mane, Salah and Jota as your three forwards. Getting in behind, because I watch Leeds against Man United, and if that's their back four, I hope it's the same back four against us, because they don't seem to be playing in any particular zonal play or man-for-man mark, and they seem to be doing a mixture of both, but at the wrong time for each one. So hopefully they'll do that. But just quickly mentioning that thing from the Brazilian players, I always felt that was to avoid people claiming to be injured and not going on a trip and then suddenly being fit to play.
That's true.
So this is a totally different situation. And if you look at the Brazilian FA and the medical people made to the Argentina game the other night, when they walk on after 7 minutes of the match and announce that 4 of the players are basically illegal immigrants into Brazil, and the match had to be abandoned, which they didn't mention apparently before the game, but chose 7 minutes into the match to go on. That's the Brazilian organisational qualities for you, certainly in that aspect of the game against Argentina. Why they didn't do nothing before the game is unbelievable. But that rule you've mentioned, as far as I know, that's if people are injured and don't go to the tour, don't go to a game claiming to be injured and then suddenly being all right on the Saturday, which is what we used to do long years ago with my dad, because someone, I won't mention any names, someone would be not going to an international game and I'd say, what's up with him? He just doesn't want to go. You know, he doesn't want to go and play, and we don't want him to go because they always come back with different training and different injuries. So I don't think that, again, if the Brazilian FA goes to FIFA about it or UEFA get involved, it'd be interesting to see what they say. But presumably there's a lot of other clubs in that same position from not releasing players to the South American qualifiers last week.
Steve, Paul makes a really good point there. That rule is there for a different reason. You can't apply it to this situation, a pandemic and red list countries and blah, blah, blah. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I'm
not a lawyer. Is the first thing. I'm certainly not an international lawyer who understands all of that. I was interested in what you've just said, Paul, because I wasn't aware of the fact that it was brought in for a different reason. I think there just needs to be a little bit of common sense on this one. I mean, at the end of the day, What is the club supposed to do? I mean, we and it's not just us. Players are paid £200,000 a week by their club, okay, and then they go on an international break, which none of us likes anyway, you know. But okay, we accept that it has to be done, and then they're in quarantine for 10 days. You lose them for another 10 days. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
It can't happen.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It can't happen. Well, that's the situation we're in. And I'm going to do a video later about the starting lineup, but there's so many things up in the air. I mean, Naby's back now, but I was thinking about Naby. You've got Elliott's injury. You've got this Brazilian situation. You've got Van Dijk's, possible knock or whatever. It's kind of difficult to predict a team if they all line themselves out, and I'm sure common sense will prevail with the Brazilian situation. It has to. It really has to. Then the team is fairly easy to predict, I would suggest.
I think just coming back to that Brazilian situation, I mean, realistically, what's going to happen? Well, we saw how long it took to resolve Manchester City's FFP problems. I mean, this may get to court in about 3 years' time.
Which is nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Steve, just before I go, did you manage to read any of that thing that I sent you before about the club finances, the Swiss Ramble thread?
Unfortunately not. I'm actually not on Twitter. I refuse to sign up to Twitter.
Yeah, I realise that.
However,
you could just see it anyway.
However, I will have a look at it, because clearly there's source documents that I'd be interested in, just to see what happened. I mean, on just commenting on the wider aspect with that one, I don't think it's a bad thing if we've got owners that effectively are displaying good governance and good stewardship of the club. So I'm quite pleased that we're not in this free for all of paying £100 million for players. I just think that it needs to be enforced elsewhere as well.
Of course, Paul. You going to see Birkdale United under 13s this afternoon, or
no? Marine under 19s against Stockport County under 19s.
Oh, there we go.
The National Youth Alliance League, first round of matches. So it's not some children playing in a park that you're not allowed to go and take pictures of anyway, like by the rules. So they're not under 13s. I don't go to anything below under 18, as per the FA guidance, without permission of the clubs. No, it's a good league. It's been going the last few years. So what's it, Wednesday afternoon, 1:30 or 2 o'clock. There's some decent games, and I've been to some very good games in it over the last few years. So,
do you ever, when you go to these games, have you ever been stood on the line and thought, this lad's playing below his level. He should be at a much higher level. Or is that not a thing anymore because the academy system, everyone gets picked up?
Well, it's that academy system. This is it's an under-19 thing, but all the players, they're associated with clubs, but they're all parts of academies. Like Robbie Fowler's academy, is football and education academy. They're in it in a different league. They play under Liverpool at the Anfield Sports. So that's I'll go and watch them as well. They were supposed to be playing Bolton today. That was that early kickoff,
right?
1 o'clock kickoff, but it got postponed, and Bolton haven't been able to come. That was just yesterday. So this one is like the backup match, which is the Marine one. No, there's some decent players, but they're all attached to academies,
right? And
they're all under scrutiny, if you use that phrase. But it'd be difficult for someone to slip through. I mean, I like watching I go and watch the Liverpool business houses games on a Sunday morning, and now and again there's players in that. But you say he's not a bad player, but you don't know what they're like off the pitch. You don't know what the attitude is, whether they want to play or not want to play. You know, that type of thing. Because it's like when you see someone to be a professional footballer, it's a lot more than you think it is. You know, you say, oh, it's a great life and that, which it is. And financially, it's a great life, a reward in that sense. But the amount of work...
It's not more. It's a lot more than just talent, isn't it?
Oh, it's a lot more mental thing and everything. You see some players struggle with it now. It never used to happen. You wonder now what used to happen to players in the past, because certainly, you know, my dad's era, if someone was going, I don't feel well, get on with it. That would have been. Now, whether that's right or wrong is another thing. Whether it's gone too far the other way now, where people can get out of things just by saying that they don't feel up to it, type of thing. You know, I'm a mental stress. I'm not suggesting anyone who does it's wrong, but it's one of them things. You just got to get on with what you're doing. If you feel you can get on with it, get on with it. And if you need help, get help. And certainly, the way they're doing this in football now, I think it'd be difficult now for someone to not be treated if they need to be treated, if I can put it as broadly as that. I think if you get better looked after now, and certainly in my dad's day, where you would have been told to get on with it, literally told to get on with it, whether you were in desperate need of help or not. Like, it would have just been, what's up with him? I don't know. You know, he needs to get on with it. He needs to, and if the phrase is man up, which of course is now frowned upon.
Yeah,
and
I think it's the right way. I think we've now got to the right level, because it's definitely something that needed addressing, and now hopefully people who need help are getting help. Boys, just before I let you go, give me a score prediction for Sunday's game against Leeds.
2-0 to Liverpool.
Okay, Steve.
2-1 to Liverpool.
Paul.
2-1 to us.
How many was that? 2-1 was that?
Me, 3-1, sorry.
3-1. Full house, brilliant. Look, lads, I've loved chatting to you again. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you again in a few weeks. If you're watching this on video, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube page, like the video, which is very important as well. And if you can share it on your social media for us, that would be fantastic, because that tells YouTube's algorithm that you like us. If you listen to it on recording, don't forget to subscribe so that you can get all the future recordings. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Cheers, boys. Thank you.
Cheers, Carol.
Nice one.
Cheers, lads.